Hello, and welcome to another episode of Generally Speaking. I'm your host, Bill Lawrence. Today is Wednesday, August 20th. Please hit the like and subscribe and the notify bell. I was listening to a podcast. It was about an hour long. It was very interesting. It had two extremely well informed speakers, Mohammed Marande. He's an Iranian, and the Brazilian fellow Pepe Escobar. They were talking about Ukraine and the current situation there following the recent Putin and Trump meeting in Alaska. The takeaway being that the United States is looking to back out, not becoming so involved or focused on doing this campaign against Russia and leaving the burden of the effort to the Europeans, to the EU. And this, they were saying, is going to be a strain on the EU because they're going to be providing all the arms to go in there. And they don't really have the money to keep buying these arms. And what's more is these arms actually don't exist so much anymore because the main supplier of arms, the United States, is running a little short. They're getting depleted with their constant supplying their own military bases all around the world. But then also Israel has been sucking up a lot of the arms lately, and the Ukraine war of the last few years has been sucking it up. So the Europeans' economy is very, very shaky, that they don't have the money to spend on this. And what's more is the arms aren't even there to buy. Now, of course, somehow the EU will still be finding the money. And of course, somehow there will still be some arms going over there. It's not like it's just totally nothing. It never gets to that point. You know, people talk about oh, look at the situation we're in now. And yet, things keep going on. Well, it was interesting just to think of that perspective. The United States backing out, I really don't know to what extent, how much they're backing out. Last I heard, it was our generals calling the shots and our CIA providing all the intel. How much they're going to be pulling back, I don't know exactly what sense we're pulling back. But that was the idea, and I thought that was interesting. But then there was more discussion about the forces involved in just carrying out these efforts. These things happen not like rain falling from the sky. They happen because people push the agenda. People have their interests, and it was talking about how many in the West are just Russian, haters. They want to see Russia destroyed. And it's interesting how one of the issues Russia has with Ukraine is its possible participation in NATO, which is something they put their foot down. We can't have that. And I at one point thought, well, what's the problem? NATO's, okay. But now I come to realize, NATO is not okay. NATO is an aggressor, and it's part of the West, which has especially, as exemplified by the U.S., which goes into countries every which way it can if it sees an opening, and they're not providing all the natural resources that the U.S. wants. And even if it's doing nothing, the U.S. still wants it. So, yeah, Russia has a very good reason for not wanting NATO on its doorstep. But the crazy anti-Russian people in the West, want to keep prosecuting this. They want to push it. They want to invade Russia. They want to take over Russia, which can't really happen without an extreme war, a World War III, which would bring about, nuclear Armageddon. I mean, I suppose the sides would try to restrain from dropping those bombs because everybody knows once that happens, both sides lose, and they might just try to keep doing conventional warfare. That would be horrible. But it was interesting just talking about the motivations. And then there was this other group of people, the oligarchs, who want to have relations established again. Why? Because they're all about money. They're all about business. That's all I care about. Russia is a market. It's also a supplier, and the West is a market, and the West is a supplier. And can't we all just be friends so we can go back to doing our business as usual? So you've got these forces on both sides of the fence, both sides of the issue involved here. And so it was just interesting, talking about that, high level, view of how things are going on. So there was some other comments I wanted to make about Trump and how this looks for him, and how if the Russians end up getting what they want, and it'll look bad for Trump. It'll be a failure. He'll have failed, and I'm thinking failed, failed. Failing is something that happens when you're talking about something that failed. In Trump's world, the only thing he's interested in is enriching himself and his billionaires. And he has succeeded beyond his wildest dreams in his first administration and this one. He was a rich fellow in real estate before he came into office. He had plenty of contacts. Now his contacts are international, and they're at all levels of governments. He has succeeded, extensively, and he's going on to more. Yeah, failure? No, I don't think so. So, any rate, um, that's that's what's going on with that. So, what else? While these people were discussing, world affairs, and talking about even Zelensky and what he could do and not do, and how he's constrained by the forces inside his country, and if he tries to give up too much, which essentially means give up anything, he'll get a bullet in the back of the head, because so much of politics involves murderous individuals who are within the in the government. Which brings me to another topic I wanted to mention a little bit, and that's just about humanity and the nature of people, good and bad. There are good and bad people in this world, and the bad ones can be very bad. Just look at the crime gangs, the crime lords, how they shoot, torture, and kill people that get in their way. And the sad thing about it is we have these kind of people in all of our governments. Now it's interesting how we don't have a more destructive world environment, considering that these people exist. You would almost think this whole planet should be nothing but a bunch of gangs, fighting each other. And yet it's not like that. And what is it? Is it because gangs, just can't kill each other? There has to be some recognition of we need some peace so that, we can live, do our bad stuff without having to worry about having our throats cut. Or is it also that there's good people in the world and they act as a buffer and they moderate certain things? I don't know. But this one statement I thought was very interesting about when Gaddafi was taken out. He wasn't taken out by the military, he was taken out by the CIA. And why is that? Well, because we can't authorize military forces. There are restrictions, which these restrictions seem ridiculous because I've read about, several wars where the military does go in. It's just that nobody talks about it. It's hidden. The requests are done behind closed doors. So the military goes where they're not allowed. I mean, actually, right now they're in our city streets where they're not allowed. So yeah, they do that. But this thing about the CIA was interesting, in particular, how the CIA has its own military within it. It's got the equipment and it's got the men that are essentially soldiers and that will carry out military operations. I never realized that, but there you go. All right, I saw a poll, and what are polls worth? I mean, we've had polls here predicting who was going to be the president, had so much of a lead over the other one, and totally came out the other way. And what an embarrassment it was. The pollsters, having egg on their face. And then it happened again, another later on, not too long later, another poll who was winning, and bang, the same thing, another stuff. So polls, aren't necessarily worth, that much. Plus, sometimes one poll says one thing, one poll says another thing. But at any rate, enough of that. This poll was saying that the Democrats are viewed more unfavorably than the Republicans, and I had to just wonder how in the world can this be with all the horrors that Trump and the Republicans have released. First thing Trump is in office, they fired thousands and thousands of government workers. They certainly had to be unhappy with that. Then you got all these immigrants being deported, and now the farmers, their crops are collapsing left and right, on top of tariff deals that are causing major havoc. And so all kinds of food industries are suffering, and yet let's not forget the big beautiful bill where we're cutting Medicaid from people, we're cutting SNAP programs. Who isn't being hurt? I mean, aside from the billionaires, and yet still people want to think that the Republicans are somehow better than the Democrats. I don't get it. I mean, look at reproductive rights. I mean, there's half the population, the female population, is being assaulted. Now, a lot of women, have strong feelings about abortion. It's taking a human life in their mind. And so I could sort of sympathize with them, but a lot of women don't. So again, how do the Republicans come out ahead? Let's talk about the non-cis population, the LGBTQ plus. They're totally assaulted by the Republicans. In fact, you have to wonder how there are any gay people that are Republicans. Yeah, I'll be a Republican, and I love these people that do everything in their power to make my life a living hell. How do they do that? I'll tell you. There's a word that the communist, you know, Marx, Engels, popularized this word, and I love it because it is so to the point. Lumpen proletariat. Lumpen. I don't know if it means what it sounds like, but I certainly think, yeah, there are a lot of the working class are lumps with no brains, and I don't know where they get their sentiments from, but they certainly never learn to straighten up. Lumpen proletariat. That's what they are. So, um, what else we got going on here? GM, General Motors, got a 32% slump in its quarterly profits, and you have to feel bad for them. They only made 30 billion instead of 70 billion. I don't know what the billions are. I'm just making it up. But when they lose profits, they're still making profits. And any rate, that's what's going on with them. Another wonderful Trump-related benefit. All right. So what else? I was in my last podcast talking about suggestions for turning things around in this country, and what the Democrats need to start proposing, making a new Project 2025. And I'm looking at it all, and it says, "Oh, so you mean be more like Europe and the other advanced nations? Have Medicare for all. Have better schooling, have maternity leave. Yeah, be more like Europe." And I'm thinking it's interesting, be more like Europe, but Europe's starting to have some problems, especially Germany, and they're hurting. But yeah, be more like them. That's a good idea. Or Japan, this whole be like them is it's we should there's so much that we need to improve in this world, and that could be improved if only countries worked together. You do this good, I do this good. Let's share our mutual benefits. And political systems, I got to say there's one thing Trump did that was a benefit, and that was bring more attention to the craziness on the right. Because before Trump rose to power, the right was starting to rise again. Another these right wing people that are no benefit to the working class, they're starting to come to power, and now Trump threw a little monkey wrench into that, especially with Canada. The conservatives were a shoo in, to take power, and they just got lost altogether, and the liberals, came up. I'll tell you someplace it hasn't worked out so well to that effect is in the UK. The Labour Party, the so-called Labour Party, which has become just a big business party, is still going strong, but now it's finally having cracks. And the old not Labour Party, headed by Jeremy Corbyn, doesn't really even have a name yet. It was so relegated to inconsequence that it no longer even had a name. Now they're starting to come up. So the whole idea of how governments should run, is an idea that people should think about how governments should run. But what do we have to do with it? It's the forces of nature, the human forces that run political systems and humanity. They're just interesting to think about, and that's why I watch this and think about these sorts of things. And you know what? I've got other things to say, but I'm going to leave it for another podcast because I'm trying to keep these things shorter. I know when I watch podcasts, I like to see short ones, even though I watched that one that was an hour long, because it was just really so fascinating. They also were talking about things related to that part of the area, Azerbaijan and Armenia, with regards to Iran and the events going on there. And that just reminded me, I wanted to say, there's something I never talk about. Africa, how many countries are in Africa? There are quite a few, right? And Central and South America have a lot, but they're never in the news. You never hear anything about them. And there are things going on there. And I would certainly like to know a little bit more about them. I'm interested in international politics. How do countries do these things, and how they get away with them? And that reminds me of a country I was watching, hearing about. I thought this was going to end already, and I'm still going on. I'm almost done. Bhutan, the country of Bhutan, somewhere near the Himalaya region. Bhutan. This is a country that had a very, very, very remarkable element to it, which was their reckoning of themselves, their personal opinions, how much of the world focuses on, or at least considers it a significant element, the GDP, the gross domestic product, the production of goods and services. That shows you how well a country is doing. Now, of course, there got to be so many things a person can talk about, or what is a well-doing country. I mean, you could be producing all the goods and services in the world, and you could all be slaves, under a taskmaster. That's not a country doing well at all. So back to Bhutan, the GDP. They don't use a GDP, the gross domestic. They use a gross happiness product. The gross happiness product. These are people who think about happiness. Uh, uh, Go Bhutan, go Bhutan. That's what I say. So, any rate, there you go. There's another recording. I'm going to do one right after this because I have more to say, but I'm trying to keep it short. And thank you for listening. It's a pleasure having you, and have a nice day.